This meeting is being recorded.
Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Pride of Olympus, we delve deeper into the Star Trek universe with Admiral Bob Vosseller of Region 7 in Starfleet and Zimbaka, who is of the Pride Lantian Empire. And we will be updating ourselves on what's going on in the Empire, not the Empire, the Empire and the Federation, and we will proceed from there. Greetings and welcome, gentlemen.
Greetings and welcome, Hercules.
Now, I'll give you a brief update on what's going on with Mount Olympus. I set up the by Facebook role-playing game, and we have some people in there. I believe both of you are in there too, so I'm ready to start. Thomas was in my previous role-playing game, so he knows what to expect. Basically, it's a turn per week, so it gives you plenty of time to respond. And then I would post summaries of what happened. The Facebook group structure changed so that the newer groups don't allow files. So I have to figure out a way of getting around that. But other than that, it'll be the same system. Turnabout will be in a week. And then it's like those stories that were written years ago in Star Trek fandom where people contributed and then the dungeon master or the moderator kind of edited them so that they all fit together. I'll be doing that as well so that we have an Olympian adventure by the time that's finished, and we'll have a context for writing more stories if we choose to do so. Cool. And I know with Lionheart, all I have to do is basically have a conversation and we can come up with a context for interacting with the Pride Lantian Empire. But I don't know for Starfleet Region 7 if we have to have a formal relationship to do that or not.
I don't know that myself, but I'm sure we could work something. I'm sure if it's something fun, we'll find a way to do it. I don't think there's a problem.
Yeah, basically it'll be the storytelling, the role playing once the pandemic is more manageable. I have a gaming store in Punton Lakes that'll allow me to run a game there occasionally. They'll promote it. And then I have a comic book store that will allow us to have recruitment flyers in there on an ongoing basis. So it's a start. And we'll work with the Justice. I believe they're the nearest starship to us. And then again, with Lionheart, we could just have conversations and figure out how we're going to fit that together. Is that everybody in agreement with that? Is that okay?
That works very well.
Yeah.
And in terms of this podcast, Marie can never make it on the day that we have it planned on Friday. She's free Saturday. I don't know if you guys are free on Saturdays generally, if we were to move it, or should I do what I've been doing so far as every now and then have another one on a Saturday to accommodate people who can't be on during the week.
Yeah, maybe every other, every so often that might, I never know week to week on my Saturday. Generally, I'm safer for Fridays because I'm okay. Off. But even when I'm off, I've had assignments that I kind of pitch in for, for work, in my business. But mix it up a little bit, see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, most Saturdays I can be available. Like there's some Saturdays I do have D&D, and then there's a rare Saturday I have to have time with my coven. I have like a weekend thing with my coven, but some Saturdays I'll be available, so I can work.
Okay, so what I'll do is we'll keep it Friday. Today we didn't get Michael Stein because it's his birthday. So
yeah.
Michael, if you're watching this at any point in time, happy birthday or happy belated birthday by the time you see this. But we did remember you, and we are honoring you. But he can usually make it on Fridays too, and I know Anne-Marie can usually make it on Friday. So we'll keep the regular show on Fridays, and then every 2 or 3 months I'll do one on a Saturday for folks who can't normally be on Friday.
Sounds good.
All right.
Now, go ahead.
No, I said all right. That works.
Oh, okay. the Klingons that I knew are, what do you call it? It's been very many years since we did Klingon things together. Are you guys in touch with any Klingons who might be interested in this adventure?
I am. I can reach out to her. She was a member, or maybe she's still part of a Klingon group, and I can't think of the name off the top of my head because it's been a while. But she's also a member. She lives kind of in my area, but she's a member of a chapter that's all the way out in Pennsylvania, which is a little bit more correspondence oriented. I've tried to get her to join us, pre-pandemic, because I just figured it would be easier for her to interact with us. But I'll reach out to her. We're Facebook friends, and I think she pays a lot of attention to our USS Challenger Facebook page. And I'll reach out to her and see, if she wants to, she or anyone else of her Klingon association would like to be the representative, to take part.
I'm in
Okay.
I'm in the Klingon Assault group, both on Facebook and on Discord. And they also some of them also even stream on Twitch even. So I wouldn't mind having to, give them a heads up too if any of them would be interested as well.
Oh, awesome. I remember when the Klingon Assault Group started. I remember the birth of the Klingon CAG in New York. I think it was John Scurry and those guys. Yeah.
One of them is actually still in Duluth, Minnesota, actually. And there's some of my friends that he worked with back in the day in the area here.
I'm glad to hear they're still around and active. They were fun at the meetings we used to have in New York. Okay, so we'll look in that direction. Now, again, back in the day, when I was more actively involved in fandom, there were also like Vulcan groups and Romulan groups, and there was an Andorian group. Are there still people who cosplay or role play or go to conventions as a particular bunch of aliens from the Star Trek universe?
I think from time to time. I mean, unfortunately, we haven't had a lot of, conventions in the last 2 years. Farpoint is coming next month. As far as I know, it's still a live event. It's in Maryland at the Hunt Valley. I don't know what the name of the hotel is these days, but it's the same hotel that Shore Leave has been at. And Farpoint is, returned there a few years ago after, I think, 3-4 years moving to a different location down the street at a Ramada Inn or a Holiday Inn, and everybody was very happy to see them return to this hotel. But there's people that do like to cosplay. I think the last Farpoint I was at in particular, there was a woman who and I remember distinctly, it was a Friday night because I thought, well, it wasn't even like the masquerade or, the costume contest or anything. But from Friday night, she was 3 different characters. I know Captain Marvel was one. I think Spider-Woman was another. And maybe Jean Grey, Marvel Girl was a different one. Yeah. I mean, every time we turned around, it was like, is that the same person? I don't know if there's necessarily people that continually to wear the same, alien race. I think they mix it up. I think they might go as a Klingon one time or have a different character. I know I've gone to conventions as an Andorian, and I'd like to resurrect that myself. I got to dig up in my attic and find my antenna and my wig. I finally had to chop that wig down, because it looked like I was a member of the Beatles. Well, my first foray into that was many years ago, back in the days when, and you remember this, Hercules, when the hotel in New York was called the Penta Hotel.
Penta Hotel, yes.
And it got its name, I believe, because it was out of the Rora Penta Hotel. It was a pretty cold place there at that. The heating in our rooms in particular wasn't that good. But I remember the first time going with, and I may have shared this story before, so forgive me, but if you remember Donna Pastor, Kara.
Yeah, I was just thinking about her, yes.
She and she of course was classic Klingon at that time, and her friend was a Romulan. I forgot what his name was, but and then we had another person who was a Vulcan, and didn't go in as a Vulcan with a uniform, but was sort of a Vulcan priestess, kind of like from the motion picture or from Star Trek 3. So we went to lunch over, there was a Roy Rogers down the street in New York. And I remember I was, really dark blue, like the color of your shirt, Steve. So a little bit darker than the Andorian should have been, more Smurf blue, but that's the makeup I had. And I had the paper, they didn't have antenna at that time that you could buy at convention. So I made my own, and I had paper mache, but it was colored silver, and it had some aluminum foil wrapped around it, but it was really painful to wear because it had some kind of metal prongs that were sticking in my head, but I didn't mind. And I had the white wig. So we went down the street to Roy Rogers, and the three of us, we thought, well, we'll cause a stir in there, but we forgot this is New York City. Nothing bothers anybody in the Big Apple. So we walked in, and they just looked at us like, okay, what's your order? Even the blue guy didn't faze them, like me. So that was fun.
It is New York. I used to set off when I was doing the Klingon thing, and also with the when I had my television show, and I used to wander around New York in fur and leather with a sword, and that basically people would not get phased. They just dealt with it, and there was never any problem until September 11th, and then after September 11th, I kept getting stopped every single block by soldiers with guns, and after a while, it just wasn't worth the time, spend my day walking like 4 blocks downtown. So had to leave the sword home.
Well, from my experience, I know my dear friend Nuncha, who is a Klingon that I role played with. There was, I think it was like in 2001, she actually, for Halloween, she dressed up as her. I think she told me she used some sort of gel to properly make the ridges and then spray it over to give the rigid look. And now we in Fargo, North Dakota, we have a couple conventions. The big ones are CoreCon and ValleyCon. And I think I remember, I think it was 2014 in ValleyCon, there was an Orion slave girl. I wanted to talk to her, but she looked like either she was in a hurry or she was just plumb frustrated, tuckered out, because she was walking past going, poor girl. And I know in CoreCon one year, there was a Klingon group. I didn't get a chance to talk to them. I really wanted to, but they were leaving their cards of their house here, there, and everywhere, like near like where you get the water and all that. They were leaving the mark of their house everywhere. There's also I think they had a booth here this last ValleyCon back in October, but I know that I went to theirs in 2019. There's the Federation group, the USS Imperium. They had a room and did a talk and all that. So I think I remember there was like a Vulcan Federation woman there, and they told an interesting story once that they kind of had a little squabble with a group of Klingons once, where the group of Klingons left all this clown stuff on their booth saying, oh, look at those Federation clowns and all that. So in retaliation, the Federation had those big garbage plastic cans. They were filled with tribbles. So they came over.
Okay.
So they came over and just like Gatorade, they just poured them over on the Klingons. They said, the guy that the Imperium said, to this day, there's probably 1 or 2 tribbles still in the vents that got rolled over there and forgotten.
That's cool.
I remember those type of days. It was a lot of fun. Has anybody heard from Donna Pastor? Like what's been going on with her? I haven't heard anything about her in decades.
I sadly, I believe I heard years ago that she had died, that she moved to Arizona or out west somewhere, and that I had asked, and I think Alex may have told me that she had passed. I never found out what it was, but I believe she's no longer with us, which is sad.
That is sad.
We had some great times, and she was a pistol. She really was. She was, she was a lot of fun, and she would just show up at our meetings when we least expected it. I think she loved the element of surprise.
Mhm.
And yeah, we just had a lot of fun with her. And she was like part of the early fandom, my early fandom life experience, with when I was still with the Avenger, and then, shortly afterwards with Challenger. And we hit a lot of conventions, that they would go to. And and then I knew she moved. I think she was also involved with remember the company, and I think they were based in New Jersey, that filmed the original Toxic Avenger.
With Trauma,
Trauma.
I did a lot of stuff with Trauma over the years.
Yeah, I believe
show.
she was involved with them too, because she had all this inside
know.
information, and she really liked, what was his name? And he's been in Star Trek. Barrowman. He's got a very unique.
I know you're talking about. Yeah, David
A
Barron.
very unique.
Yeah.
He was in the first season episode of Next Gen, playing a captain, and I mean, he doesn't need makeup. I mean, he just has a very unique look.
Yeah.
And he was in like the Mad Max
The
movies
Hills
too.
Have Eyes, I think he was in that movie as well.
Yeah. And but she said he was like the nicest guy. They said they hung out with him on the set, and he was just like such a cool guy to be around. And I just remembered, her description of him and some of the stories that they had on there. And I think I did see him at a convention once, and he did seem very down to earth.
She was sick before. I remember she was in the hospital. I remember visiting her in the hospital, and then she was moved out with her family out west.
Yes.
Arizona. And that's the last I heard from her. I tried looking her up a couple of times. Like I looked you up, for the first Atlantis, to see if I can get some people together, but I wasn't able to locate her. So again, I'm very saddened. She added something to the fandom. She was quite unique,
Yes.
and I know that she'll be missed. And hopefully somebody who can give us more precise information will pop up at some point in time. We lost during our early fandom Shona Jackson. I don't know if you guys ever knew Shona Jackson. She had the Klingon embassy.
I remember the Klingon embassy. Yeah.
I was going to say the name sounds familiar.
Yeah, it was a very early fandom thing. She had she and I had started corresponding. And when I was putting together our Klingon stuff with the Karazhan Empire and all that other stuff that I was doing, she was our embassy, and then she died. And I tried calling her family, I remember, to express my sympathies, but they didn't seem very fond of her Klingon fandom. So that was a very short call. But yeah, we had a lot of colorful people in the fandom, and missed. If I was still doing the Klingon thing, I'd howl for their loss.
Well, it's something, because we've been around for so long. It's interesting to see how over time, we've grown up with it. I don't want to say we've grown up, but we've grown. I mean, here we are in our. I don't want to say we're in our golden years, because we've still.
I'm in my 60s, so.
But we've reached a point where at least you and I, Hercules, have a little gray in our beard, and
I'm sporting the Reed Richards look here. Okay, so
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, but reflecting back to our roots, to where we were, before the internet, before all that, all those newsletters. I still remember, and I still have a number of those newsletter exchanges. When I would get one in from CAG or the Karazhan Empire, or and I have to say, let's see, I do make sure that I mailed ours out as soon as ours was produced, because we'd be like the next month, and they would come in the month before, and but we had such a nice, healthy relationship with the newsletter exchanges, and reading them and seeing what other groups were doing and what their interpretation of fandom was, and all that kind of stuff. It was so much fun.
Yeah, yes, it was. And I remember some people took it way too seriously. So we used to leave things on our desk under notebooks so that people come steal it, because we knew they were going to steal stuff to know what were going on. And people believed the most outrageous.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, there was those that took this so seriously that it became like a spy operation or something.
Our roleplay group, which is called the Nexus group, because the initial Star Trek roleplay room that we roleplayed in was called the Nexus Bar, because Generations was the most recent movie that came out at the time when the website WBS started up. And so we have a little Facebook group that we're all kind of communicating on. And I know we did a sound off, not like thing last year, because it was like 20 years ago when we did our major role plays, and we were actually all telling about like because inspired by Picard, like what our characters would be like now, older and all that. But I know we've had a few of them have passed away as well that we've remembered off too. But it's still interesting that a lot of us are still up and about, still out and around. But we all have our own lives now. But it's still that we're still able to keep in touch, which we're happy for.
Yeah, it's amazing. Star Trek is a very powerful, inspirational, and mythic presence. It's our future mythology. And Roddenberry, for all his faults, he was a very human person, like all of us. He gave us a vision that we're still not able to live up to. that it seems like in some ways we're going backwards. So to have this vision of a time when humanity can outgrow some of its pettiness and finally work together and look beyond our Earth into the stars, that's something worth staying with, and that's something worth trying to nurture in the society around us. So I'm glad that we're still in the fandom. And I was looking at what the Roddenberrys are doing. They made a foundation to try to support the vision in the larger society already. Unfortunately, they didn't answer my email. I sent an email or two, but they're out trying to actualize Gene's vision as well. And then there have been a couple of books. Shatner wrote one of them, or co-wrote one of them, that show how what we imagined on Star Trek we have now. We even have replicators. They can't replicate life yet, but they can replicate food. They can replicate parts. They could replicate.
We can 3D print.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually one thing that finally, I think it was only like 2 or 3 years ago, scientists were able to create transparent aluminum.
Yes,
Yeah.
I read that.
I heard that too.
I was like, oh my word, now we can finally house those whales. But yeah, that's the amazing thing that it's all the way, especially the cell phone, especially when they finally did the flip phone, and it was like, oh wait. But for the record, in the Star Trek timeline, World War III starts in 4 years.
Yes, I know that.
2026. But so if there's anybody named Colonel Green, we need to keep an eye on them. But anyway,
hopefully
it's one thing we could skip.
Star Trek has timelines, and they have a time police. So I'm sure we can create an alternate timeline. Hopefully where that won't be necessary.
But yeah, that was always the thing that always so fascinating. And on the subject of Star Trek 4 is that the humpback whale is actually out of the endangered species list.
Oh, good.
Because I remember seeing the meme in the Star Trek 4 saying, "You're welcome." So, so we've actually pushed away, at least for now, the moment, from that.
Now, one of the things that I liked about Starfleet, and we joined Starfleet in many such efforts again back in the day, was like blood drives. Starfleet had a blood drive, so we really dramatically put something together. I think one of the Klingons cut their hand and bled on the carpet, to challenge Starfleet to a blood drive. And we had blood drives, and we did other things like that too.
Food drives, yeah.
Yes, and we'd have like a friendly competition on who can outdo each other, the Empire or the Federation. And that's always something that stuck with me over the years. And when I reconnected with Bob and Wayne and everybody, that's still being done. There are toy
Yeah.
drives, there are all sorts of
Last
things.
year there was one, I forgot now if it was a blood drive or it was a food drive, but I think it was a food drive. Yeah. Yeah, they weighed, literally weighed the poundage of the different foods. So I think the Klingons actually beat us by a few pounds. So that was, and it's great because it fosters camaraderie, and it serves a great cause. It helps, different food pantries in different locations. So it's such a, and nobody knows about that. Because we're so busy doing the actual work, nobody thought to like maybe put out a press release and said, hey, this is going on, because they're separate groups, like in the future when we do that, one of us has to put together some, not so much that we want attention for it, but that never hurts, because it actually could help generate donations. It could actually, bring attention to the fact that, oh, these weirdos who like Star Trek and so much that they dress up and they're still around, they're doing something positive for the community.
And that's why I think it should be known. And that's one of the goals I
Yeah.
had for this show, that at least here, and we don't have a wide circle yet, but we'll get there. At least I want to focus on that all the time, that it's not just sitting in a chair watching TV and hoping for a better future, that the people who are involved with Star Trek fandom, even to this day, are doing things like this. And considering how many fans there are in fan organizations, and every one of them is doing something, cumulatively, that's a lot of something being done, and we should be aware of it, I believe.
Absolutely.
Now, I haven't had a chance to watch any Star Trek TV recently. Usually I don't get Paramount Plus. And usually I wait till they're out on DVD. They're in my local library. I'll get them from my local library, and then if I really love something, I'll try and purchase it, and with the eventual goal of having it all. But I'll aim for the things that I really consider important first. So I haven't seen anything Star Trek. Is there anything new going on that we should know about?
Well, I myself am a little behind on the Star Trek Discovery this season, which is currently on, I believe it's still on hiatus, but they did at least 5 episodes for this season. I caught the first episode of this season, and I've been meaning just to binge watch, and it looks like I'll have the perfect opportunity this weekend, especially tomorrow, because my neck of the woods will be buried in snow, so I'll have no excuse. So I do have a piece of information on the fact that this came out today, that Star Trek Picard, which we haven't even seen the second season come yet. I believe that's scheduled for March. Yes, will be released. Yeah. The second season is March 3rd, but the third season will be its last, and that's not necessarily a bad thing when you consider that this was supposed to be a very finite story. The star and executive producer, Patrick Stewart, is not exactly a spring chicken either. I believe he's 87. Am I correct?
Wow.
He's up there.
So, he's in his 80s. I'm sorry, Patrick. I'm adding a few years to him. Where you get to see Patrick Stewart, 81, returning to the role he made famous in 1987 and continue to make famous. But he's I think 3 seasons for that. I mean, when these streaming service series began, even Discovery was originally conceived as maybe a 1-year anthology, and then they would go off and do something different and approach Star Trek from a different angle with a different show. So I think Star Trek Picard was meant to wrap up Picard's storyline and address his life. And I think they did a great job on it for the most part. I enjoyed the first season.
I enjoyed the
looking
first
forward to the second season. There is one aspect of it that I wish they had gone in a different direction on, but maybe they'll amend that. I'm glad to see that John Delancey will be back as Q
And
he's
Guinan.
setting up.
And
the-
Guinan, too, right?
Yeah, and I don't think it's much of a spoiler to say that this will involve a special effort to correct a alternate timeline for those that we've seen the spoiler, and Picard comes into contact with Guinan, Whoopi Goldberg, and we knew she was going to be back because there was a big to do about him asking her right on her show The View and her getting so excited and saying yes. So that will be cool, and I'm looking forward to it. And I think even with the third season, whatever they might do, I'm sure we haven't seen the last of some of the characters that they introduced during this series. Particularly bringing back Seven of Nine from Voyager. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't do a spin-off of her, or they continued it without Picard, or they did something. Some of those characters, moved on in their own journey. So, that was the latest Star Trek news I have. And Star Trek Prodigy, I don't know if you don't have Paramount Plus,
No.
I haven't just watch it either.
I've only seen the first 2 episodes, maybe the third. Maybe I caught the third. It is very clever, and it features Kate Mulgrew as a holographic kind of instructor in a new starship prototype that had apparently crashed on this planet that was being used for mining, and a group of young people get aboard that ship and are able to escape from subjugation, because they were basically being made as slaves. And there's a whole sub story to that, and it is aimed at a younger audience, although it still keeps your attention, in my opinion. It's got enough there. It feels like a Pixar production. The animation resembles that to me, as opposed to the Rick and Morty animation of Lower Decks, which Lower Decks has a totally different tone to it. It's very funny in its own way, but it almost kind of, I don't want to say makes fun of Star Trek, but it kind of does an homage and brings back obscure characters, and it brings back all these Easter eggs, and it just kind of gives you a warm fuzzy in that, like, you get the joke. These are this is a show made by fans for fans, and it's just basically cute.
Lower Decks grew on me because when I watched the first episode, I wasn't sure what to think of it with all the humor of it. But yeah, especially when they pile on the references. And it's for one that grew up with the animated series, where they made nods to that every once in a while. It's like for the one episode where what's his name, when they had him transport the transport, but he didn't fully beam in. Apparently, the Federation has this camp for anyone in the Federation that's been mauled in any sort of experiment or altered by alien viruses or whatnot and all that. The one that runs the camp is the same alien race from the animated series that was in Chekhov's spot. I can't remember his name. And then they did another episode where there was this one alien being that was doing this testing for everyone in the crew. She was based on a character that was from the animated series that had the ability to disjoin his body parts.
Yes, Bem. Yeah. Bem.
I was like, I remember that.
Yeah. Well, the very first episode had I think it had the alien that could metamorph, but not, not the salt vampire, but from the animated series that was in there, who I believe it was voiced by Ted Knight, and that right away I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. The very first episode, and they have a nod to the animated series. So,
and I think also the last episode of the first season, they showed a picture of Kirk and Spock in animated series form.
Oh, wow.
drawn exactly like that. And I was like, oh my word, if Filmation can only see this. But speaking of Prodigy now, for those of you who are playing Star Trek Online, there is a new expansion that just came out, and the first couple missions on it has Janeway in it.
Oh,
Oh, awesome.
I have not played it. I'm going to be planning to be streaming it on Twitch as Temphia. I'm kind of excited for that because we're going to get to meet up with Janeway now, but because they had done an expansion many moons ago. They had most of the Voyager crew on there, but yeah, now they finally got Janeway on there now. So I'm kind of
that's
excited.
very cool.
I heard that Chakotay was going to be on the animated show also. And is Chakotay in the game too?
I think as of right now, the Voyager, the only ones that have yet to be on Star Trek Online is Chakotay and B'Elanna. Everyone else in Voyager has gone on there now. Now that just added Janeway.
I'd like
So
to
many
know
new
what
ways
became of Chakotay's story. I hope we see either within Prodigy or possibly because 7 of 9 is on Picard. I hope we get some reference at least of what became of Chakotay.
I know Tom Paris was in an episode when they had a special mission for him in Star Trek Online, but he was also in Lower Decks.
Yes.
Because what's his name wanted to get his plate signed by him.
That was hysterical. Yeah, that was.
I was like, how many Star Trek fans are saying right here?
Yeah, it'll be interesting with Q if they bring it back to the first and last episode of the Next Generation, where Q's running this experiment where he's judging humanity through the actions of Picard. And in the last episode, he took Picard to his own future where he was an older man. So I'm wondering if they're going to tie it together that way, where this is an alternate future where Picard's an old man.
Yeah, I believe there is a line in there within the trailer that said something like, "Don't you remember this never ends," or something like that. So maybe he's tying it in that way. But I think John Delancey, who's obviously aged and doesn't have the power of a Q to suspend aging, looks more profound now than he did. Maybe it's the beard, I don't know, but he just looks fantastic. And I couldn't be happier that they brought Q back, because they never brought him back in any of the next gen movies. And he's, I thought that was the way they should have ended last season, the first season of Picard in if I don't know if we want to give too many of the spoilers away, but let's just say that at the very closing moments, that's how they should have handled Picard's continuation. That I couldn't have thought a better way than to have Picard indebted in some way to Q, because that would have driven Picard crazy and angry, and Q would have been like, well, now you owe me one, or and it would have been perfectly in character for Q to have done something like that. So one
thing I hope that maybe Q brings up, because if you remember from the pilot of Next Generation, that Q mentions that the post-atomic horror trial they were showing, that I believe was the year they said it was 2079, where he said got more violent. Now, of course, that goes contradictory, because of course First Contact happened in 2063. Now, I believe some timeline theorists have theorized that maybe what he's representative was like a different part of the world, that while Bozeman, Montana was getting all better, and maybe there was another part of the world was still doing the post-atomic horror, that, the betterness never reached there yet.
Oh, you mean where they were soldiers on drugs?
Soldiers on drugs and all that jazz, yeah.
Yeah,
because they mentioned it,
which looked like they were all dressed in Velcro, or, I guess, Kevlar,
But yeah, that was because they never mentioned where it was in the world. It was just that it was this is the year of 2079, where it's a lot more strict and harsher. But yeah, I hope they maybe will explain that, why that would be after First Contact, but because I know they didn't prepare that year at that time, but still.
Well, Star Trek had alternate timelines. It had the mirror universe in the original series. And then in the Next Generation, I remember there was an episode where the entire screen was filled with enterprises that were going through something different in that point of time. Like I remember what is his name, number one, crying in one of them, because of what was, do you remember that episode?
Yeah, it was no, it was the one where basically Worf had went through this nebula on the drive back, and whenever he got close to Geordi, he kept on bumping over to an alternate reality. And at first it wasn't much. It was like his present changed, or what cake was served, or where Picard couldn't make it to his party where he could make it. But then it got more dramatic where he was married to Deanna, and then they had kids. And yeah, so basically they were trying to fix it, but then all these enterprises came up. And so when they were able to figure out the way to get Worf back to his own timeline, one of the enterprises were firing on him. And here you see Riker, all heavily bearded. You don't understand. The Borg have won. They've taken over everything.
Well, I think we can also accept that while it might, even if we go with the idea that the timeline was correct and it was after warp speed was, the events from First Contact and Zephyr Cochrane and the contact with Vulcan, we could still probably accept the fact that Earth may not have become a united Earth at that time, and that different nations were having hostilities, or that things weren't quite the utopia that it would eventually become.
I mean, because think about it, Enterprise took place 100 years after that, so
right.
It probably took time.
Yeah, as we've seen, that Earth can go backwards at times and regress.
Well,
But,
then and of course the other alternate timeline was, of course, yesterday's Enterprise, when Enterprise C ended up in the present, and of course it altered time where there were war with the Klingons.
Yeah.
So Star Trek has that happening already, so they can justify it. It's like the Marvel multiverse now. All the different versions, they can now justify them and tie them together in new ways. So Star Trek can do that as well.
Star Trek just needs to have its own version of a no prize, where I love the fact that Stan Lee, when they screwed up, they basically said, we did screw up, but I bet you guys can figure out a way to explain our screw up, and they would just throw it out to them for literally no prize other than to mention them in the letter column. I thought that was so clever. or you do like DC, or you do like DC Comics do, and just do your Crisis of Infinite Star Trek and clean slate it. Yep.
That too. To do that with the Kelvin universe, I think, but it didn't. It only lasted for like 3 movies. I remember the no prize, and it's funny. This week I talked about the no prize and explained it to someone. How synchronistic is that the no prize would come up more than once in a week?
Yeah, that was the thing though that kind of, with the first season of Picard, kind of disappointed me, because they mentioned about that B4 was just a dud. When the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek came out, there was a comic that came out that gave further backstory of what was happening in the present. And now there it established that Data transferred his Contra over to B4, and he was just back to normal.
Yes.
Interesting.
Well, fortunately, we'll have these things to talk about forever, because they're all fascinating, and we can theorize. Is there anything else new happening on Star Trek on any front? Are there comic books? We heard about the games and television shows. Are there any comic books coming out, or any new novels coming out? Or
I haven't heard anything about any particular Star Trek comic book projects. IDW, or is it IPW? I always get that mixed up. IDW, I believe, has the rights to Star Trek currently. And they've been doing some interesting stuff, focusing on entire worlds like the Andorians and the Klingons and various different aspects. John Byrne was doing some work for them, who's a legend in comics still. So it was good to see him, doing that. But I haven't heard of anything in particular, not since like maybe a year ago when they were doing a next gen Mirror Mirror mini series.
I think I had an issue of that, actually. They basically told the Mirror Universe at the point of Next Generation.
Yeah,
and I'll have to check on this too, because I also have a couple issues. This is Star Trek Year 5. This is basically an issue series about the 5th year. Now, this was basically this issue was based upon the sequel to the Piece of Action, where basically Kirk and the crew went back to that, and now it's more of a like a 20th century modern era, and actually Spock runs for president.
Ha! I'm sure it's very logical why you.
Yeah.
That's cool.
As a matter of
That is
fact,
very cool.
here's the next issue where Harry is running for president.
There
I
was
gotta
a
pick that one
series
up.
of photo novellas too. They did one that it takes place in the whole Who Mourns for Adonis story.
Yeah.
Those are pretty cool. They took pictures from different Star Treks and put them together in
Yeah.
a unique way to tell a new story. It's like having, like having the actors, the actual actors, and they expanded episodes. They created new episodes. That was a lot of fun for a while too.
I saw that one. There was at least one issue of that one that I came across at my local comic book store, rifling through a box of they were $1 boxes. And this comic was originally like $3.99 at least, if not more. So I was excited to have it. I went nuts, with a whole bunch of books that I came across and put them in a pile. And then finally went and got them, but I must have mixed up my pile because I pay for them. I go home, I'm going through it. I'm like, where's that issue? Oh my God, I didn't get that issue. And I went back and they had, I don't just leave stuff there, but maybe I did. I don't know. I usually am nice enough to put things back in the box if I don't decide to buy it, but I must have made multiple copies and realized the time and had to get going. So and they had changed all the boxes. So it was like, I don't know if I can go through every single box in there from their $1 box. And I was going nuts. I was like, it's gotta be here. It's gotta be here. And I still didn't find it.
And then, so now credit to this, there's an online reviewer called Linkara who reviews bad comic books, but he's also a Star Trek fan. And I did not know about this, but they did I think it's either a 7 issue that if you're also a fan of Doctor Who, they did it. It was a Doctor Who Star Trek Next Generation crossover. It ran for about 7 or 8 issues where basically the Borg and I forget the android race from Doctor Who, there's logic in what he says.
The Daleks or the Cybermen?
The Cybermen, basically the Borg and the Cybermen make an alliance, and because the
Cybermen,
Cybermen,
they're basically the same.
Yeah, so they basically, because they crossed over dimensions, the Doctor and his companions end up on the Enterprise working with Picard and the crew to try to stop them.
Is Matt Smith the Doctor? Because I have that whole graphic novel and I've yet to crack it open, but that is on my to-do list.
I think it's the 11th Doctor. Yeah. Now, what's interesting though is that at one point, the Doctor decides to go look back to see if they had made an appearance anywhere in the past, and he gets like this shock of all these memories flooding to his head. And we look back to the Kirk era, and it's the Tom Baker Doctor.
Yes.
Oh,
wow. There was a fanzine with that. Concept. I have that from. Well, I did have that. I don't think I still have it. But it was a great crossover.
And what was interesting was that the Cybermen then was like the Cybermen when they kind of like around the time when they were first introduced, because their look is completely different.
Yeah.
So it was really clever how they did it. It was most enjoyable for both Star Trek and Doctor Who fans. So I would recommend it if you can get your hands on it. And then if you have Steam, Steam is like an online platform. You can buy games and digitally. Both the old DOS games of Star Trek 25th Anniversary Edition and a sequel, Star Trek Judgment Rights, which are basically point-and-click adventure games. They are both on Steam. You can play them on there. And both of them, the whole cast voices in them. Some of the missions have references throughout the series and all that. They're really good to play.
I remember those from years ago.
If you can't play them, go on YouTube and just look up like Star Trek 25th Anniversary Edition long play. It's almost like watching the series. I think the manual even refers to it as like the 4th season practically.
Well, so there's a lot of exciting things going on with Star Trek. And again, that's very, very good. They were talking about a lot of other projects that I don't see coming in. Like, for instance, they were going to do the secret organization Section 13. From the very beginning, they were talking about doing that. Do you know if they're still planning on moving ahead with?
I think there are still plans for that with Michelle Yeoh. I think that maybe that's on the let's see. Let me go back because I posted it to our Region 7 Facebook page, and it has the schedule for the next year. So let me go back and take a look at what I posted myself. This was about a week ago. Gosh, I post a lot of stuff. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Trek schedule for the next 6 months and beyond. Let's see. Discovery will return on February 10th. Prodigy, I believe, may end on February 3rd, 1 week before. Discovery will continue on until March 17th. Picard will begin on March 24th and will finish up in May. And Strange New Worlds will also debut at that same time, May 5th.
Oh, great. I've been looking forward to that.
Strange New Worlds will continue on until July 7th. Later in 22, Lower Decks, Season 3, 10 episodes. And later in 2022, Prodigy Season 1.5, 10 episodes. Expected in 2023, Picard Season 3, 10 episodes. Expected in 2023, Strange New Worlds, Season 2, 10 episodes. Discovery will hit Season 5 with 10 episodes. Lower Decks will have 10 episodes for Season 4. And Prodigy will return for Season 2. And the episode count is not determined yet. So I did not. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I got more.
See, now out of curiosity, I looked up to see about that fourth Star Trek film, and apparently it looks like they're set for release for June 9th, 2023.
Yeah, there was still plans to have a fourth movie.
With Christopher
But, there was
Pine.
nothing, it didn't seem like anything solid. It's just like, yeah, we're gonna do it, and we've got a schedule, but we don't have a script. We don't have.
Because it's, according to Wikipedia, it says at the time Paramount set Star Trek Discovery writer Kalina Vasquez to write the script of a new Star Trek film based on her own original idea, with Avon's Brad Robot producing. A month later, the studio is scheduled for a Star Trek film release on June 9th, 2023. So we will see.
And how about Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek? Is that still happening?
No.
No.
I don't believe he's involved at this point.
Yeah, it says in December 2019, Tarantino said he was steering away from the site directing the film. He made no official decision yet. A month later, he said that he was not going to direct the film, but he thought it was a good idea for a Star Trek film and suggested it would still be made, offering to give notes to the first cut. Tarantino's story was later revealed to be based on the original Star Trek series episode, A Piece of the Action, which is set on the alien planet, much like 1920s gangster culture.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah, so that was the last thing with him.
Yeah,
Okay,
because
so
that would be like more like a rehash of that episode.
That
And
episode, yeah.
probably could be expanded on to be a 2-hour movie. I think it could be successful. It could be a lot of fun without it being a total copy. I think there's ways to doing it. Who knows at this point?
Yeah, who knows at this point? But it is continuing in multiple formats, and that's a good thing. So
that's the thing that just blew me in my mind, is that we've went so quiet, except for the 3 J.J. Abrams movies, and now just all these are just coming out. It's like,
Yeah.
And the digital age is allowing us to even resurrect old games from long ago, where they would have been like forgotten. Nobody could play them because you don't have floppy disk players anymore, and allowing them to be played on these new streaming services. So that's awesome too.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it's a different age for us, but we're still getting plenty of Star Trek, which is good.
Yeah,
Yep.
yes, we are. and for even more Star Trek. What I'm looking for, if you or anybody else wants to get involved, is I'm looking to gather Olympians primarily, but also people from the other quote unquote divine races in Star Trek. So we're starting off with Who Mourns for Adonis, and then I'm going to go like different episodes, starting with the original series, but then popping off into the other one. So we're going to look at what happened with Gary Mitchell and that whole process. We're going to look at the cues, we're going to look at just various going around the galaxy. And there's a bigger plot line to it. This plot line, actually, we started doing it back in the Klingon days, where toward the end, and Wayne got involved in that too, in this new empire where we revealed that we weren't really Klingons, we were actually incarnate in Klingon form, but the Klingons were like containers, and that we were this race of beings who were sent into three-dimensional reality to recruit warrior races and to turn the aggression of warrior races into the heroic impulse. So that became part of the new thing we were doing. And John Delancey actually helped me meet some people. I was trying to pitch the concept to like TV studios at one point. And Peter David, the author, was there when I was trying to pitch these things at one of them. It was at a convention, and there were some people from Paramount. But anyway, we'd started that story back then, and we started making the connections with the Greek gods and so forth. So I'm going to pick up that story because it was a good story, and weave it into this this continuation. And since we always had in the story that we're a little bit beyond time and space, having the time travel, works pretty well also. So if you have anybody who likes mythology and who'd like to play either an Olympian or a Q or something else, that's what I'm planning. So I'll put that out, and I'll start doing the role play aspect of it by February to launch, but I'll have something posted by the end of the month in a couple of days, because I promised that I'll have something by January. So I will have something by January. Is there anything new happening with Region 7 or with the Challenger?
Let's see. I mean, the STEPS program that you had mentioned, different members of different chapters are participating in that. I know Wayne is doing very well with that, and although I've kind of gotten into an exercise routine, I always forget to actually, activate the app on my phone and apply all those steps that I was taking in my walking in place and all that for my routine, so that I never end up providing my step count for the program. So I gotta get on the stick on that. But it's doing well, and people are participating, and we're very happy to see that, not just in Region 7, but fleet wide, around our organization. So that is that's a hopeful thing to see, that we're actually getting some exercise and putting some care into that, especially those of us who weren't as young as we used to be. So there's that. And as far as activities, I know we've been doing some virtual forums like this. With thanks to Omicron, we kind of took a step back. This month, Challenger ended up having our reorganization meeting, which is usually a planning session for the new year, but we did that virtually this time. But we'll be having a live meeting in February. So plus things were rather hectic in January anyway, getting into the groove of the new year. A lot of people were doing a lot of things to kind of reorganize their lives, so there was that. So and Region 7 is planning on a major showing at Farpoint next month, late next month. I think it's the 25th to the 27th in Maryland. I'm hoping to make it, but I may not. I don't know. It also depends on the weather too. If we have a weekend like this, obviously I won't be going.
Obviously not. I'd like to highlight the people who are following the program. So if we could put something out where every time we have this show, just have somebody on so they could tell us their progress. And if you like, I can proclaim you an Argonaut because you're in our initiative because you're trying to make trying to improve your fitness, and I don't require direct steps or anything, just every week like 2 sentences on how you're doing. So if you feel more
Okay.
comfortable recording it that way,
Yeah, yeah, I felt good. My wife gave me this video, and she's kind of been my coach, and she makes sure I do it. And since I work at home, and my lunch break, I take time out and I follow the steps. And it's more than just walking in place and stuff. It's a couple of things. But it's not that extreme, but it's at least and sometimes I do 10 minutes, sometimes I do 15. But just doing something is better than doing nothing. And that's the philosophy behind this video series that this woman does. And, it's worked for my wife, and it's definitely working for me. And I've been enjoying it.
Awesome. When in the group, I give away books every week locally to my town. So whoever's an Argonaut can also request those books. So I'll just mail it. If you want any of those books or DVDs or anything, just let me know and I'll mail it to you.
Oh, thanks. Thanks.
Thank
My
you.
wife's got a number of them, but but
yeah, if you don't want them, that's fine too. But if you see anything that strikes your fancy or you think will be helpful, just ask me for it, and it's
okay,
yours.
cool. Thank you.
Lionheart, what's going on with the Pridelandian Empire?
Well, the Pridelandian Empire is pretty much quiet right now. For the most part, I've been the Star Trek related stuff I've been doing is, of course, when I stream on Twitch as my persona of Tenfia Moonlight, the drag queen mistress of time.
Okay.
Last month, now in the winter months on Star Trek Online, they have what's called Q's Winter Wonderland. Q teleports you to this kind of like this wintry place. You can play all these games where you're throwing snowballs, you're doing defeating snow enemies, go fishing on fish and all that. I actually, as I was streaming it, I actually ended up as a prize. I had gotten this Orion gingerbread person actually just tag along behind you and all that. It was the cutest little thing. But yeah, I plan to here the next couple of weeks here. I'll probably be streaming the Janeway missions that just came out in that recent expansion, because I'm kind of excited. But I want to stream that because I enjoy streaming it when I'm new to it, because I feel like if the viewer is getting new to it, if they haven't seen that mission, I get to be just as surprised just as much. And it's Janeway, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And with fitness, you've always been into fitness. I remember back in 2015 when I did the last fitness initiative, you were doing all sorts of things, and I highlighted your activities fairly often. Yeah, there you go. I saw it on your picture on Facebook too. You're making a muscle. What are you doing for fitness these days? And would you like us to highlight it as an Argonaut or no?
Certainly. The biggest things that I've been doing is that during the summer, I usually will do my biking.
Okay.
During the winter months, since it's too cold to go about biking, what I've been doing is doing Wii Fit. Of course, now the Switch has its own version of Wii Fit with I think what's it called, with the ring, I believe it is. But that's been my major. I can't speak. My main means of doing it. Also, I would also recommend if you have access to the Just Dance games, the most recent versions that have come out these past couple of years for like the newest consoles, you can subscribe to it. It has access to all the songs you dance to. Good workout. But for the most part, I've been using Wii Fit, where basically I can where I do 10 minutes of jogging and then 10 minutes of the aerobic stairs. And then they have one that's where you do this rhythm boxing.
Okay.
Good workout for the entire body, doing just a half an hour.
So I'll list that you use the Wii Fit primarily, as well as dancing programs. And Bob, I'll list you as doing a workout routine from a DVD, and also counting your steps occasionally.
Thank you.
And I'll welcome you. I'll proclaim you Argonauts, and I'll invite you to the community wellness group. I do have a position in my town. I'm the champion of the mayor's wellness campaign. During the pandemic, we're not having any meetings or doing anything. So I don't like remaining inactive if I have a responsibility. So I just created this group on Facebook. When my Facebook account was hacked. It erased it, so I had to start from the beginning again.
Oh,
That's right. That's right.
What can you do? So anyway, there aren't a lot of people in there yet again, but it's okay. It'll get back up there. I used to have 5,000 friends too. Now I'm in the 500s, but that too will come in time, and I don't give up. So just keep going.
Yeah.
But okay, great. Welcome new Argonaut. And also Lionheart, if you see anything in there in the books or the DVDs that appeals to you, again, just let me know. I'll ask you for your address, PM it to me, and I'll mail it to you.
Well, certainly.
Well, thank you so very much. And I enjoyed today's conversation. Again, if I didn't have a time constraint of another podcast, I would just keep talking. I'm really enjoying talking to both of you. Are there any closing words you would like to speak before we go? We'll start with Bob.
no, just everybody out there, keep warm. I mean, I know this is broadcast all over the place, but and right now, my neck of the woods, we're about to get a blizzard, and you know, it's winter, so that's fine, you know, and it's been cold, but spring will come, and you know, but just everybody be safe out there in your travels, and you know, and with this pandemic and everything, and look forward to being back next month, and as always, thank you for having me.
And thank you for being here. And Bob also has a great show called Spaced Out.
Yes,
Which is coming up as well, and we'll be posting
Alien.
that.
We'll be delving into the Alien franchise
Right.
with Wayne. So
I like Prometheus. Most people didn't, but I happen to like that part of the Aliens franchise. And now we go to Lionheart. Any last thoughts you'd like to leave us with before we go?
Well, we're not expecting a blizzard for once, but it's just going to be still on the cold side. Still, you know, be sure to bundle up, but do not give up. If it feels you're stressed, if you feel that the world's pressing down you, just calm down, relax, meditate. All will be well. I know you can do it, and press on.
Awesome. That's a very powerful place to end today's show. So thanks to anybody who's tuned in. Until next time, this is us wishing you joyous journeys, amazing adventures, and a happy and healthy new year.
Very well.